Chances alive. That pass deflected way outside for Clark, who drops a three.
Makes it look so easy. But once you get...
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So, oh my god, that is the only way I can describe that game. Oh my god. Caitlin Clark-Aaliyah Boston combo, too much for the Sky in overtime win. Fever takeaways. The Indiana Fever essentially had to beat the Chicago Sky twice, ultimately surviving in overtime behind the combined efforts of Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. The Fever made things more difficult than they needed to be, squandering a double-digit lead for the third consecutive game, this time a 19-point cushion. Then, Indiana held a 3-point advantage and possession in the waning seconds of regulation before Kelsey Mitchell simply fumbled the ball out of bounds on an unforced turnover with 5.1 seconds left. The Indiana Fever should have won that game by 40. They really should have put that game away by 40. Instead, they win it by 8. They win it by 8 in a game that felt completely out of control at multiple moments and somehow still ends with them surviving. Caitlin Clark what was she in that game? Let's actually slow it down and look at the box score here, because this performance deserves context. Caitlin Clark was 3 rebounds off a 32-point triple-double, 3 rebounds away from something ridiculous again, and Aaliyah Boston had 34 points. 34. I think that is either a career high for Aaliyah Boston or 2 off a career high, but either way, that is an absolute statement performance. Kelsey Mitchell? Dear Lord, what went wrong with you today? What was wrong with you, Kelsey? What was wrong with you? Because this is not just a one-off anymore. Kelsey Mitchell has had like 4 bad games in a row, but is still somehow averaging like 19 points a game, which makes no sense when you watch stretches like this. And if you are Caitlin Clark, you needed that one. You needed that game, because Paige Bueckers is out here with a 17-point first half somewhere else, and the pressure is always there. So you needed a 30-point game. You absolutely needed that one. But the Indiana Fever, this is still hilarious when you zoom out, the Indiana Fever had a 98% chance of winning. 98%. They were up 19 points. 19 points. That is supposed to be game over in professional basketball. That is supposed to be done. Pack it up. Instead, it turns into chaos. And the reason they pulled out the win is very simple. The greatness of their 2 best players. That is it. That is the entire story of this game at the end of the day. Can people shut the F up about Kelsey Mitchell? She might not even be the 3rd best player on this team right now. She's Cal Thomas. She's become Cal Thomas in this system. That's how frustrating it looked at times, because Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston were basically forced to carry the entire structure of the offense while everything else was falling apart around them. Caitlin Clark had 32 and 10. 32 points and 10 assists. And again, this is not normal even in WNBA history. There have only been 8 games in WNBA history where someone has had 30 points and 10 assists. 8. Caitlin Clark has 3 of them. 3. That is absurd dominance in playmaking scoring balance at the highest level. And then you look at the game flow. Somehow they gave the Sky a 70% chance of winning at one point, when the momentum was fully swinging. The Indiana Fever then sub on Damiris Dantas, and you are sitting there asking, what are we doing? What is the plan here? Damiris Dantas comes in and she does not change anything offensively. She just keeps picking up fouls and slowing the rhythm. And then Sydney Taylor. What a hooper! What a hooper! Because at some point this game flips into individual brilliance and chaos, and Sydney Taylor steps right into it. Sydney Taylor played 21 minutes and 30 points. 21 minutes and 30 points. Do you know how insane that is in a rotation context? Only twice in history has a rookie had over 25 points in less than 25 minutes, and both of them have been Sydney Taylor in the last 3 weeks. That is not normal production. That is a scoring burst that changes games instantly. She is a bucket getter, super efficient mindset, and she could genuinely be a future star. Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, take a bow. Take a bow, because you are fantastic. You are absolutely fantastic in completely different ways, but equally dominant. That inside-out connection, the spacing, the finishing, the passing reads, everything was there. Lexi Hall, take a bow as well. 7 offensive rebounds. 7. That is pure effort, pure hustle, pure willingness to do the dirty work when everything is messy. That is what you want from Lexi Hall. She is the glue. She is the energy. She is the chaos cleanup player. Lexi Hall can't always control the defensive side perfectly anymore. But if you are going to be the best hustle wing in the entire WNBA, then fine, that matters. That absolutely matters in games like this. But then you also have Myisha Hines-Allen. Myisha Hines-Allen was super in this game. Absolutely super. This is exactly what people were hoping for when she was brought in. This is exactly why some people kept saying, just wait, just give it time. This is a good bench role type impact. And in this game, she actually showed it. This is the kind of role player performance that quietly swings momentum without needing headlines. Raven Johnson and Ty Harris, I thought they were all right in stretches. Not perfect, not bad, just solid enough in moments where everything was breaking down. Raven Johnson, especially in the fourth quarter, had moments where she looked like she was stabilizing things, making the right reads, not forcing chaos. That matters in a game that is completely unstable. And then you look at the collapse moments. The Indiana Fever sub-patterns were questionable, especially when Caitlin Clark was pulled for defensive sequences and the possessions didn't go well. Twice that happened, and it failed both times. Then, in overtime, they don't sub her out, and they actually get a stop, which is huge. Sometimes it's just that simple. Natasha Cloud had moments where the fouls just completely shifted momentum. Every single time Caitlin Clark got to the line, it felt like it was because of contact, because of pressure, because of defensive breakdowns. And Caitlin Clark goes 11 for 11 from the free throw line. 11 for 11. That is composure under pressure while everything around her is swinging wildly. But the big issue, again, is Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell just completely loses control of key possessions. Rush of blood to the head moments. Mistakes at the worst possible time. And then people start asking why certain substitutions didn't happen, but the reality is you can't predict those breakdowns every single time. The Fever still hit a massive shot to send it to overtime. That alone is crazy, considering how the game was trending. And Caitlin Clark's overall game was still elite, even without the three-point shot fully falling. All downhill driving, all playmaking pressure, all decision-making. She hits a deep three early, maybe even the first possession of the game, and then does everything else through control and creation. And the bigger picture here is this. Caitlin Clark is still one of the most dangerous guards in the league. Aaliyah Boston is still one of the most dominant interior forces in the league. You saw it again in the fourth quarter when everything tightened. Caitlin Clark single-handedly dragged this team back into the game multiple times. Aaliyah Boston finished it. That combination is real. Lexi Hall provided hustle value, Myisha Hines-Allen provided role stability, Sydney Taylor provided explosive scoring, Raven Johnson and Ty Harris provided rotation control, and then everything else around it was chaos. But that is why this game feels so strange, because despite all the mistakes, despite the blown lead, despite the questionable stretches, the Indiana Fever still win. They still close it out. They still survive. And at the end of the day, this is what stands out the most. This team is not clean. This team is not perfect. But when Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston are locked in together, there are moments where it looks unstoppable. You just don't get many games like this. And the Indiana Fever somehow turned a 19-point collapse risk into an 8-point win and walked away still standing. Tell me what you think. Don't forget, like and subscribe.